It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy the grind.
Welcome to the Hockey Writers Grindline. I am your host for today's show, Devin Little. My usual line mate, Kyle Knopp, is away somewhere figuring out how to pronounce the names of some of the Red Wings' newest draftees. But I'm still joined by some familiar faces, starting with our editor, producer, and my host over at Prospects Corner, Matthew Zator. Matt, how's it going?
Doing good. So draft is over. It's sad when the draft's over because there's so much that now we unpack everything. That's what we do on this show. So doing great.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel the post-draft depression starting to seep in, but we'll deal with that later because we got a show to do. I am also joined today by a couple of my teammates here at THW, starting with Logan Horn. How's it going, Logan? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm doing good. Like Matt, I enjoyed the draft today. It was a lot of fun. Excited to talk about some of the new prospects and some of the other major moves going on in Hockey Town.
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, rounding out today's panel is Delaney Reimer. Delaney, you took your rookie lap a few weeks ago, and it's good to have you back. How's it been?
Good to be back. It's been pretty good, pretty busy. It was good being at Little Caesars Arena yesterday for the draft party and seeing all the familiar faces, getting very confused when Shane Wright didn't go in the top 3. That was pandemonium, to say it lightly, but everything's going good. Ready to talk about some hockey.
It wasn't just at Bell Center that people were having meltdowns. Good to know. Before we begin, our show today is sponsored, as always, by The Morning Skate, the Hockey Writers daily newsletter filled with anything and everything hockey. If you love this sport as much as we do, be sure to sign up for The Morning Skate over at morningskate.io for free delivery to your inbox Monday to Friday. Also, drop us a like and subscribe to stay on top of all the best THW content. All right. At this point, you know how we start the show, so let's do it. One good, one bad from the week. I'm the host. You know how this goes. The host gets to slip theirs in real quick. So real quick, my one good from the week is we're going to talk about it today. The Red Wings added 7 forwards in this year's draft, led, of course, by their top pick, Marco Kasper. Heading into this draft, the need was, all the talk was how the Red Wings needed to add forwards and centers specifically. And that was clearly a focus for them, considering who they got and who they picked in this class. And we'll talk about it a little bit more here in a couple of minutes. But my one bad, as you all know by now, my guy in this draft, Matthew Savoie, did not go to the Red Wings. And he, in fact, went to the Buffalo Sabres with the pick right after the Red Wings. And it would be one thing because, I can cheer for Matthew Savoie from the sidelines as much as I want, but he's now playing for a divisional rival of the Red Wings. So, in a couple of years when we've got Kasper versus Savoie, you better believe I'm going to be watching closely to see if the right teams made the right picks in that situation. But enough about me. Let's throw it out there to Delaney. You here first, since it's your second time on the show. What is your one good and one bad from the week?
Okay, so one good. I'm gonna have to go with picking up Husso today. That's got to be my one good, because when I saw that he wasn't going to be staying in St. Louis, I was a little excited because he just seems like a good choice. And then one bad, so after the draft today, Steve Yzerman was in an interview and he said that he didn't quite accomplish everything that he was looking to accomplish in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to call that the one bad, because I really want to know what he's trying to pull off. And I know we are never going to know that because he keeps his mouth shut. So we are just never going to know.
Loose lips sink ships. I will say there were some interesting rumors floating around before the draft started pertaining to the Red Wings. So clearly Yzerman's making calls and seeing what's out there. So we could buckle up. We could be in for a wild ride here over the next couple of weeks. Logan, going over to you now. I want to hear your one good and one bad from the week.
All right. My good for this week was that the top of the first round of the NHL draft was actually fun.
Yeah.
I don't know, the first time in, I don't know, forever it feels like, especially compared to doing it virtually the last few years. Having an actual crowd there, having people walk up, although incredibly slow. That'll get to my bad though. It was really fun, like hearing the Montreal crowd reacting to those back-to-back trades they made, getting Kirby Dach in Montreal. It was wild. It was a lot of fun. Cheers and booze. Lots of booze for Gary Bettman. He got very salty. It was really fun. Anyway, it was a great time. It was chaos at the top. Shane Wright falling to Seattle is hilarious and awesome, kind of like Matty Beniers and Shane Wright. Pretty sick.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's my good. But going hand in hand with that, my bad is that the first round took 4 hours. It took longer than rounds 2 through 7. 32 picks took longer than almost 200. Like, it was, my mind was fried by the end of it. It took so long. It was so drawn out. They really just need to find a way to expedite that situation a little bit, because it was a great product in general, honestly, especially the excitement with some of the surprise picks. But it was way too long. It took way too long. It should be like 2 hours. Anyway, yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, it was a good thing that there was so much craziness going on in those first few picks, because at least in the early going, it didn't feel like it was taking forever because there was so much happening. But as things started to settle down, it was like, oh my God, it's 10 o'clock and we're still going. What is happening? Matt, over to you real quick. Let's round this up. One good, one bad from the week, please.
Well, go same thing. That was probably the best first round I've seen. Even live, even in the live ones. Last one that was live was in Vancouver here, and I don't remember it being crazy, insane like it was. We were talking before about major trades. Like, I couldn't remember the last time a trade like big one in the top 10 was moved on the draft floor, and that's what happened in this one. Like the Kirby Dach trade, or the Romanov trade first, and then the Dach trade. And that was, like I mentioned on the show on Prospect Corner yesterday in the recap, it was funny watching the set of fans react to both deals happening. The Romanov trade, they're like, oh, we don't like it. And then the Dach trade, and they're like, oh, they perked up. So it's like, it was really fun to watch. So, but yeah, the length was a little bit long, but they wanted to do all their interviews, and they had that big, little bit of a tribute to Bossy and Lafleur at the beginning too, and St. Louis came up and spoke. So I think that took a bit of the time. If you kind of take that and cut that out, maybe the first round didn't take as long as it felt, maybe. But I mean, overall, the draft was great for a first round I've seen in a long time. So, and then my bad is just for the second day. It's funny because for the Detroit Red Wings picks, I looked them over. I'm like, I don't know any of these guys. Like, of all the research I've done for prospects and my rankings and all that, and they pick only two guys that I had known and had around my rankings. So that's my bad. They didn't pick people that I knew. So
and we'll address that, because I think that is kind of a overarching thing with this draft class. Is there's a lot of names that people didn't know or weren't talking about a whole lot. So, but we'll get into that. But first, we have to start at the top of this draft class. Let's talk about the Red Wings' latest first-round pick, Marco Kasper. The Austrian center spent this past season playing in the SHL with Rogla, where he was teammates with fellow Red Wings prospect William Wallander. In 46 games, he had 7 goals and 11 points. And as Chris Draper, head of scouting, noted following the first round of the draft, he earned a steady role in the SHL playing against men as an 18-year-old. Not easy to do. He's a center whose greatest tools include his motor, his tenacity, and his hockey IQ. Matt, I like to start with you on these prospects things. I want to start with you. Marco Kasper is a Detroit Red Wing. What do you think?
Well, I love the pick. I mentioned it on our recap show too, and we picked him in the mock draft. It's a very Yzerman pick, like we've said, and he's got a lot of upside. I said earlier that I think he may have a ceiling of maybe a third line guy that can jump into the top six and be a guy, but he's really risen his game in the last few months. So, I mean, I'm kind of upping his ceiling a bit. I think he can be a top six guy. But I think he's going to really settle into that. I keep comparing to guys to like Chris Draper, those types of guys. But he's got more upside, I think, offensively than Draper did.
Yeah.
Or that ended up Draper having. So, but I really love the pick. And I had him, if he dropped to where the Canucks were picking, and there was a time where he was supposed to go in the 20s, and we were talking about the Canucks trading down to get him. And now he's drafted in the top 10. So it's like, he's really risen his game. I really love how he plays. I mean, his like you say, tenaciousness and work ethic and all the things that I kind of check off. If I was a coach or a scout, those are my boxes. So I love him. I love him as a prospect. It's going to be really fun to watch him develop.
Yeah. Hearing, Draper and Yzerman describe his game to the media, they kind of kept talking about how the quote that stands out to me was from Yzerman, and he said, he doesn't always make these flashy plays. He doesn't do the Michigan. He's not flashy. He's efficient. Mm-hmm. And, he's one to make the right play. And just to kind of throw my 2 cents in here real quick. That description almost makes me think of my favorite player, Henrik Zetterberg.
Yeah.
Because Zetterberg had skill up the wazoo, but he wasn't the one doing all the crazy moves that Pavel Datsyuk was doing. Yeah. Zetterberg's greatest skill was that he was a smart hockey player and could outplay almost anybody he went up against. And I think that's more or less the player that they're hoping Kasper can become. So I hope I'm not setting the bar too high there at Zetterberg, but I think that is more or less what they're kind of hoping he becomes. Delaney, over to you now. What do you think of the Red Wings' newest first round draft pick, Marco Kasper?
So I really like it. He was one of my top 3 picks for who we'd take at 8th. And the Red Wings really needed a center, and they got their center. So really, what more can you ask for? And he's a really great center at that. He's pretty close to being NHL ready too. He's not too many years out. So 1 to 2, depending on how training camp, September, and any conversations with Yzerman go, who really knows? But I'd say 23, 24 definitely seems like a safe bet. And honestly, given the state of the roster, I'd say that he could make it to the second line pretty easily. And then he's also at that point a good, if anything happens to the first line center, he can bounce up and handle it well, which is something that we need. We need someone who's adaptable like that. They need someone who can step up and fill a bigger role when needed. So, and he has the hockey IQ to do so easily. You put him on a line with anyone and they're going to make something work. He's just ice smart. He knows exactly what's going on. So I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, I think he's the type of player that you could put with skill guys and they could have a skilled line, or you could put with, like a Michael Rasmussen and they could have like a checking line. I think he's a very versatile forward in that sense. Logan, let's close out this topic. What do you think of Marco Kasper as the newest Detroit Red Wing?
I love this guy. I'm so happy that he's on the Red Wings. It was really funny with all the chaos in the top 4 picks of the draft. I saw someone on Twitter talking about I thought this was going to be the pick for Detroit. I thought they would take Kasper, but at this point I have no idea. And then Yzerman actually did it, and people are like, "Oh, so we got conditioned to all this chaos and now he's actually normal for once. Like, what's going on here?"
Yep.
And that changed on day 2, as we've mentioned a little bit. But I really like Kasper. Like you guys have been saying, I think there's a real shot at him being a second line center at I don't think that's the height of his potential. I think that's a pretty steady projection. Devin, you said, I think the perfect buzzword is versatile.
Yeah.
I could see him on the power play, like in a bumper spot, net front, or more likely, probably killing penalties. If you can have one of your tops, or at least one of your top 6 forwards killing penalties, that's pretty nice.
Absolutely.
That's a pretty great option to have. You don't just have to try to fill in bottom 6 guys who can kill penalties. You have someone you trust doing that. He's great. And he's also a great kid. Like, he's Austrian and he moved to Sweden to play hockey, and he learned Swedish in 3 months. And then he decided to learn English because he knew he was coming to the NHL at some point. Like, who does that? I couldn't do that, certainly. So
Nope.
I'm a big fan. I'm looking forward to 23-24.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Looking forward to Kasper the unfriendly ghost, because that guy is not afraid to not make friends with how he plays. Good thoughts, everyone. But of course, Kasper was not the only player the Red Wings added over the last 2 days. In total, the Red Wings added 8 new prospects in rounds 2 through 7. We've said it on this show before. If the Red Wings rebuild is going to end sooner rather than later, they have to hit on a few of their second day picks. So with that in mind, Logan, we're going to start with you on this one. Is there a prospect or two that you want to highlight that the Red Wings took in rounds 2 through 7?
For sure. I'll be a little briefer on these than the last one. First off, I really like Bachelnikov. I still have to double check his name before I say it, just so I get all of the consonants in the right order. Did not expect him to go in the second round. Apparently there was a little bit of industry chatter that he was starting to rise up some boards secretly. I had checked him out a little bit before, just checking out some other prospects in the MHL, because he was always right up near the top of the scoreboards, one of the top scoring leaders there. He ended the season second in league scoring. The MHL, for those who don't know, is the top junior league in Russia. And I heard some people trying to disparage him, saying that he only had that many points because he played with Matvei Michkov, who is going to be a high draft pick next year, we can only assume. Which I understand that that note, but they only played about 20 games together before Michkov switched MHL teams, and he still had a lot of success. He is an overaged player, he was he was barely eligible last season, last year's draft, barely eligible, and wasn't picked. So, I mean, there are old players in this draft that are first year eligible that are like 2 weeks younger than him. So it's not that big of a deal. I wouldn't be too worried about that. That was a big reason why he fell down draft board so much and could be taken this late. And briefly, their 7th rounder, Brennan, or one of their 2 7th round picks, Brennan Ali, looks like a pretty good bet for the 7th round. I didn't know about him in advance, but looking at some rankings and stuff, and this isn't my favorite, but it's just illustrates the point. Craig Button from TSN had him ranked 53rd overall. So to get him in the 200s seems like that's pretty good value. A lot of picks, a lot of rankings were around 100-ish. Pretty good player in the rep, like high school hockey stuff, and he's going to the NCAA next year. So keep an eye out for those guys.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny going through all their picks. There's Kasper and Dylan James. I knew those guys. And then there was a run of like 6 guys I had never heard of. And then they end with Brennan Ali, who I actually had heard of. I was like, all right, cool. I do know one of these guys. Matt, over to you now. Is there somebody in this out of their second day picks that you would like to highlight?
Well, I'm happy that, like I said, I mentioned there are only 2 people that I knew from this this list. Dylan James was one of them, and he's a high-end guy, like 2nd round pick. So obviously, United States Hockey League Rookie of the Year, first rookie in 6 years to register 60 points. Biggest thing when you look at the players that have won this award before: Pavelski, Goudreau, Pacioretty, Jake Gensel. I mean, that's a pretty good class to be part of. And Chris Draper said he's a complete player. He likes, quote, "We really like the 200-foot game that he plays. He used in all situations," which That sounds like Chris Draper, actually. So I'm sure he liked him because of that. He's not a centerman, but left winger. But I mean, I really why I knew about him because I had him looking. I'm pretty sure I had him ranked somewhere. There's so many guys I had in my rankings. I can't remember them all right now. So, but that's probably why I recognize the name. So, yeah. And I love guys, again, I love guys like this that can have a complete game. They don't have a lot of weaknesses. You can throw them out at any time of the game. You don't have to worry about if it's, in the last minute or whatever. I think he's going to be a really good pick for the Red Wings. I mean, it's a second round pick. So, I mean, most of the time you're pretty good with second rounders. So he'll probably hit in the NHL at some point. But he had a heck of a year and got rewarded being a second round pick.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Now, before we pay some bills, I have a quick short answer type of question. We've been doing this now a little bit around here. I want to keep this going. All of us are going to respond to this one. Now, a few weeks ago on that debut episode of yours, Delaney, we all agreed that Jonathan Berggren is the Red Wings' best forward prospect. Well, now they added Kasper, and he's definitely up there. So I asked the group here, who is the Red Wings' top forward prospect, Berggren or Kasper? Delaney, you up first.
I almost want to say Kasper because he's younger and he looks like he's playing around the same level, that it could be comparable, but he's in his first season. He just wrapped up his first SHL season, and Berggren had 4 SHL seasons before he came up to the AHL. So that's a little bit longer of a trajectory than what we're thinking for Kasper, because we're thinking, oh, he could be in the NHL in 2023. And that's a lot quicker. So that's just a gut feeling that his game might translate better, quicker. So I'm going to call that better. And the best. So
no arguments here. Logan, over to you now. Who is the Red Wings' top forward prospect, Berggren or Kasper?
I'll say it's close, but just because of the value of the position and the incredible need, I'm going to go with Kasper.
Good stuff. Matt, who do you think's the Red Wings' best forward prospect?
Well, I was going to go same vein as Logan because of the position. He's a centerman, a higher value position in the NHL. So I'm going with Kasper on this one, but by a hair, because Berggren's a heck of a prospect too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the by the hair thing. I could go either way with this one, to be honest with you. I'm going to be ranking the Red Wings top 25 prospects here now that the new draft class is added. And exactly, this is going to be one that I'm going to be thinking about for a minute. So I have to say something. So I'm going to say Berggren just to be the outlier here, but it's literally only because I think he plays sooner, and that's the only deciding factor here. I hear the argument that Kasper's a center, so he's probably a bit more valuable, but I think Berggren plays next year. I think Kasper needs a year over in the SHL, and that's literally all there is to it, at least for this sake. But stay tuned. I might change my mind in a week.
You got to check the article to find out.
Yeah. Good stuff. Now let's take a quick time out to pay those bills. This is a reminder that today's show is brought to you by The Morning Skate, a daily newsletter sent straight to your inbox that is filled with all sorts of hockey-related goodies. There's a link down in the description for you to go sign up. And while you're down there, be sure to give us a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and be sure to leave a comment down there and tell us how excited you are to see Marco Kasper wear the winged wheel on the ice for the very first time. All right. Now, of course, much of the focus around the draft pertains to the prospects that are selected by each of the NHL's 32 teams. But that's not the only thing to talk about when it comes to draft day. We've already kind of alluded to it. We saw a handful of impactful trades go down over the last 48 hours or so. And Red Wings general manager Steve Yzerman was at the center of one of them. Before the second round started, the Red Wings sent pick number 73 to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for goaltender Ville Husso. Delaney mentioned it during her One Good segment. Following the completion of the deal, it was announced that Detroit had reached a 3-year deal with Husso. And Husso is 27 years old, so that takes him till he is 30. Real quick here, Husso had a breakout year this season with the Blues, posting a 25-7-6 record, a 2.56 goals against average, a .91 save percentage, or .919 save percentage, and he supplanted Jordan Binnington as the Blues starter heading into the playoffs before some uneven play forced Binnington back into the starter role. Honestly, just to throw my 2 cents in here real quick, Husso's situation coming into the Red Wings organization reminds me a lot of Alex Nedeljkovic's situation coming into Detroit last year. Delaney, I know you're going to be writing about this, so I want to pick your brain, get you ahead of the article here. What are your thoughts on the Red Wings acquiring Ville Husso?
So it's been a pretty constant, not necessarily an outcry, but just kind of a statement at this point throughout the season. We need a goalie tandem. We need a cohesive goalie tandem. Like the fans, Twitter, like, oh my gosh, get this guy out of here. We need a better tandem, essentially. You know the guy in question. But I think it was a really great acquisition. I said it earlier, but this will solidify a young, talented goalie tandem. They're essentially the same age. Nedeljkovic is 26. Husso is 27. That's the same thing in my book. And it's like, we've been wondering, who's that second goalie going to be? Who are we bringing in? Who are we kicking out? What's going to happen here? And people have been filling in the blanks hypothetically, like, oh, is it going to be this guy? Is it going to be this guy? We've got our guy. And they're pretty even. They're pretty at par. So it'll be more of a 1A, 1B instead of a 1 and a 2 situation. It's not going to be like a hot and cold difference. It's going to be more of a cohesive effort, which I think is exactly what this team needs. So I'm excited. It was a good deal. Great acquisition. We'll see how it goes.
Applause all around. Logan, I have to ask you, Delaney's talking about it being a 1A, 1B situation. I'm curious, do you think Nedeljkovic should be looking over his shoulder now that the Red Wings have added Husso?
I don't think so. I think I saw some stuff on some people talking on Twitter or someone was sharing something Steve Yzerman said, that this does not mean that Alex Nedeljkovic is not going to be re-signed. This is not his replacement.
Yeah,
it's pretty clear this is a plan for a tandem, a 1A, 1B situation, or maybe they'll try to make them as even as possible, even take off the A and Bs and just make them both ones. I don't know. So I'm sure they've talked to him, and they're going to try to make sure that everyone's on board, because if you haven't heard, the Minnesota Wild recently re-signed Marc-Andre Fleury, and apparently Cam Talbot is not pleased, and he wants the starter's net, and that's going to cause some tension. If he's not traded, it is going to cause some tension. And they did it because they wanted to have 2 great goalies. So you have to have everyone on the same page. Ned is a sweetheart, so odds are good. Odds are good that he'll understand. But as you said, like they're both coming from very similar situations, not just that their teams couldn't afford them and they got traded for a 3rd round pick to Detroit, but also that they both played their breakout seasons on excellent contending teams with good enough defense. And we saw this year Nedeljkovic was good, not great, for much of the season, and he's admitted that some of the struggles he went through this year. But that's not all on him. That's on the defense in front of him.
Absolutely.
Which Yzerman has talked about as the biggest issue with the team at this point. And the same thing for Ville Husso. He played on a great team, a really good St. Louis team. You hear his record, and that's him, but that's also his defense. So maybe one of them just has redoes their breakout season in Detroit next year. I would love that. But more likely, you have 2 great goalies that you trust, and you just slowly improve, chip away at the defense until they can look like the all-stars that they could be.
Yeah, I think just real quick, I think that both Husso and Nedeljkovic need to look at this this situation is kind of a challenge for both of them. Ideally, you want to see this bring out the best in both. Nedeljkovic is entering a contract year, so he's going to have a lot to play for, just to begin with. But to now know that there's somebody right there beside him who is just as good, if not better, that should bring out the best in him. And that's, I think that's something that he lacked this past season. Delaney kind of alluded to it. So I think it's good for goalies to have someone who can challenge them as their backup or as their 1B, whatever. And I think that the Red Wings finally have that now with Nedeljkovic and Husso. Matt, while we're on the topic of Husso, it needs to be said that this solves the Red Wings goaltending situation heading into next season, or at least I believe it does. But Yzerman's work is far from over in terms of shaping next season's roster. So what do you think is Yzerman's next move?
Well, you guys mentioned the defense. That's going to be a big one. I think that's, they got potentially Simon Edvinsson coming over, but he's young and you don't know how he's going to come in. You don't want to anticipate he's going to be like Moritz Seider and just come in and dominate. I think that's unfair to think that he's going to do that. So I think what Yzerman's got to do is kind of insulate that Seider with someone. I don't know who. I want to say Josh Manson type defenseman, like guys that can, be a solid pair with Seider and just add to the defense and not overpay. Don't go crazy in free agency or anything like that. There's also trades you can do too to kind of do, but I think that's the biggest focus is to improve that defense, because like you say, now you got a good tandem of goaltending there. And I just want to mention one thing with the goaltending is that I think that's what the NHL is turning to. Unless you have Vasilevsky, you need two goaltenders. You can't be the Luongo and a no-name backup. You can't be Brodeur or no-name backup anymore. And it's just not goaltenders can't be playing 75 plus games anymore. So you need to have another guy you can count on that can play. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then, improve the defense in front of them. I think the Red Wings will be really set. Because both those goalies have shown they can play well in front of a good defense. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Delaney, over to you. Do you agree with Matt? Should Yzerman's next step be adding a defenseman or two?
Yep, that's exactly what I have written down. We all know it needs work. We picked up some defensemen today. They were really low round picks. So who's to say how that'll pan out? But we need to worry about the right here, right now, defense wise. And Steve, buddy, free agency opens up on the 13th. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of defensemen, unrestricted free agents. He's going to grab somebody. I know he's going to do something, catch everybody off guard, do it at the most inopportune time of the day.
For sure.
And everyone's going to be very confused by it, but it will work. So I'm excited to see what he does with that. But now that I said he's going to take a defenseman, he's going to take like 8 centers or something. It is what it is. We'll see.
If there's one thing we know about Steve Yzerman, it's that you cannot predict what that man is going to do. All right. Time to shift focus to our last topic of the show. We talked about the Red Wings hiring Derek Lalonde as their head coach on last week's episode, and now we know what the full coaching staff looks like. The Red Wings announced today that they have hired Bob Boughner, who was the head coach of the San Jose Sharks just this past season, as an assistant to Lalonde. Boughner will handle the team's defenseman and penalty kill, and he becomes the Red Wings coach with the most NHL experience, having also spent some time as the head coach of the Florida Panthers from 2017 to 2019. It's also, I think, important to note that Boughner was actually drafted in his playing days, drafted by the Red Wings back in the 1989 draft. And he also spent some time late in his career as a teammate to Alex Tanguay with the Colorado Avalanche. So there's definitely some familiarity there. Logan, I want to start with you on this one. What do you think of this hire? Is Bob Boughner a good fit for the Red Wings?
I have no idea yet. I'm interested in it. I could be persuaded either direction. I could be persuaded, he's got the most NHL experience on this team. Derek Lalonde, the new head coach, never played in the NHL, has never been a head coach in the NHL before. If you listen to last week's episode, though, that doesn't upset me, and I'm very excited. But I don't know. You could also say that, well, he's been fired by 2 NHL teams, and no one else on the coaching staff has had that happen to them either. But anyway, I'll try to keep an open mind for now. It seems from some of the press information from the loan that you say Boughner? I have no idea how to say his name. Boughner. That he might be running the defense. They talked about his experience working with Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns, Aaron Ekblad, Mackenzie Weegar, some of those guys. And just saying that to me just says that they like his defensive structures and stuff. So doesn't hurt to have someone with legit NHL experience looking after your defense when that is your, like, what is the opposite of calling card? Your absolute worst thing. Can't get much worse. So let's give it a try. I'm on board.
For sure. Matt, over to you now. I want to pick your brain on this. What do you think of the Red Wings hiring Bob Boughner as an assistant coach?
Well, I mean, Boughner he seemed to be kind of turning it around in San Jose for a bit there. I mean, last season they weren't horrible. It was kind of looked like starting to look maybe like a playoff team again. And then kind of went to heck this past season. But, he may do better in assistant role capacity, because the thing, he's going to be focused in on something else. And you mentioned, Logan, about the defense, and that's what, again, we talked about the defense. The defense needs better structure in Detroit too. And that goes with the coaching staff. So, I mean, even with a no-name defense, you can look like an all-star defense if you have a good structure behind it. Because you look at the Carolina Hurricanes from way back when they were winning Stanley Cups, they did not have named defensemen on their team. It's like some of the guys are like, okay, Glenn Wesley, I guess he's a good defenseman, but he wasn't like a head, one of those top guys. So if you have a good structure, you can make a unit look like a superstar defense. So if Boughner can bring that, and San Jose, I'd have to look at the stats of how well they were defensively and all that. But if he's focusing on the defense, they must think that he's got that specialty. So I'm okay with Boughner being in Detroit. I mean, I think he can probably bring some, like, the veteran experience is a big thing with a rookie head coach, even though it's not really a rookie. He's been around the block as an assistant. So it's not like he's this fresh face coming in. So, but having that experience to kind of draw upon, I think is big for a new head coach for sure.
You mentioned you'd have to look at the stats. I'm glad you mentioned it, because I happen to have a stat I'd like to highlight in front of me. Over the past 2 seasons, so this one that just concluded, and then the COVID year where it was kind of a half a season, the San Jose Sharks ranked 4th in the league in penalty kill with an 83.1% penalty kill. That's also goes along with the fact that Derek Lalonde was in charge of the Tampa Bay Lightning's penalty kill and their defensemen, and we know how good that group was. Mm-hmm. So if there's one thing to take from this hire, and then even the Lalonde hiring, I'm expecting the Red Wings defense and their penalty kill to be a lot better next year. We'll see what happens with the power play. Alex Tanguay is still going to run that. But as for the penalty kill and defensive play, that's what Boughner's here to do. He's here to improve it and help Lalonde improve it. And I said it, I'm expecting to see quite the improvement for the Red Wings penalty kill. Now let's close the show out with another quick little short answer question for the group. And this one I think is a bit of a doozy. We were kind of tiptoeing around it while we were talking about the goalies. Who will start more games for the Red Wings next season? Is it going to be Nedeljkovic or is it going to be Ville Husso? Delaney, I'm starting with you on this one.
All right. So my first gut answer is hard to tell. It's a brand new coaching staff from the inside out. Mm-hmm. But I was looking and I saw that Lalonde said he is open-minded as to how the two will share the net. So that is automatically not placing anyone in favoritism, which is what I like to hear. So I'm going to stick with my pretty much an even split, alternating games, at least for the first part of the season. See who's doing better. Primary. Keep swapping them out even.
Matt, over to you. Who do you think starts more games for the Red Wings next season, Nedeljkovic or Husso?
Well, judging by the coach that took over, he's used to Vasilevsky. So
yeah.
He doesn't have that type of goaltender. So I'm gonna go with like similar to what Delaney said. If he sees someone, running with it, I think that's the goalie that's gonna run with it for most of the season. And I don't want to be I'll pick one. So I'll go with Husso because he took over Bennington's job, and I have a feeling he's going to do the same thing with Nedeljkovic. So you better look over his shoulder because Husso's coming.
Absolutely. Logan, over to you. Who do you think starts more games for the Red Wings next year, Nedeljkovic or Husso?
I expect it to be Husso. And I believe the Red Wings expect that too. They paid a third rounder for him. They're paying him starters money to be a tandem goaltender. They understand his value and they ponied up with that value. So I'm not saying the coaching staff is going to be swayed by that. They're not going to feel like they have to give him more games. But I think the whole organization expects him to play a little bit more, at least. I'd expect him to get 50 plus.
Ooh.
See, if he's healthy.
That's the kind of bold take I was looking for. Good job, Logan. As for me,
anytime.
I'm gonna say Ned, and the only reason why I'm gonna say Ned is because I think he gets the first crack. Like I think he starts opening night because of familiarity with his teammates, and then I also think he has more to play for. Husso got that 3-year deal. He's going to get paid for the next 3 years, whether he plays or he doesn't. Nedeljkovic is playing for a contract this year. I expect him to kind of reassert himself as a up and coming goaltender in this league. Because if he doesn't, this is probably his biggest opportunity to become that guy. Go ahead.
I just had a quote written down here from the post announcement earlier from the NHL website. It's a coach from quote from Lalonde. He said he's still getting to know the guys, referring to the goalies. He's a big fan of Nedeljkovic, just watching him through his days, the success he has competing against him with Carolina. Red Wings went out and traded for him a year ago. I'm excited as to what he can be. So that's a pretty solid endorsement for Ned.
Yeah,
so I agree with your opening night nod. I just wanted to toss that one in there.
Very good. Thanks for throwing that in there. That is our show. Thank you to Matt, Logan, and Delaney for joining me for today's show. I literally couldn't have done it without you. And thank you for tuning in. Real quick before we close out, I do want to give you guys a heads up. We are not going to be doing a show next week. Myself and Kyle are going to be away doing our own thing. We've got prior engagements, so we will not be doing a show, but we will be back the next week, and we will have a lot to talk about. Free agency will have opened up. Red Wings will have probably added 2, 3, maybe 10 players, and we might be just a little tease here for you. We might be revealing who our new full-time grind line teammate is. So looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Be sure to sign up for the morning skate. Details are down in that description down there. And while you're down there, be sure to give this video a like. It's the thumbs up button. Follow the channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment down there and let us know who you think gets more starts between Ned and Husso. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we hope to see you again.